Hello and welcome back to another episode of Everything Suffolk. As always, we're joined by County Executive Ed Romaine, and today we're joined by our special guest, Leah Jefferson, Director of Affordable Housing and Community Development. We talk about affordability a lot. We talk about how expensive the island is, but we are doing some things to try to make it more affordable for young families. Can you tell us a little bit more about the first-time homebuyer grant?
Sure. This is funded through our home funds that we receive directly from HUD, and we are offering up to $30,000 per applicant if they qualify for the down payment to assist with the cost of the down payment of the first-time home buyer. First-time home buyer, by definition from HUD, is someone who hasn't owned a home in the last 3 years. So because it is so expensive on Long Island, trying to give them a little leg up and get them started on their first home. So it's all available in all of the towns in Suffolk County, with the exception of Babylon, Islip, and Brookhaven. And the maximum home price can be $551,000. So we're hoping to have a good
and Babylon,
amount.
Islip, and Brookhaven, which is a large part of this county, that's because they receive directly from the federal government their home funds.
Correct.
So all home funds for the county are for those towns that are not receiving direct aid, which are the 7 other towns. And what's like the average income, let's say for a family of 3 or say for a family of 4, what would be the income?
It's a little around $120,000.
So not unreasonable.
Not unreasonable.
And there's a lot of people with a family of 4 that makes $120,000 or less that could be eligible for this.
Right.
So if in doubt, check in. And where can they check in online?
They can go to our website, and
which is
Suffolk County, SuffolkCountyNY.gov /economic development and planning, and there is a community development page, and right on the top of the page is the application with all the directions, instructions, and all of the financial income information.
So if you're a possible first-time home buyer, which means you haven't owned a house in the last 3 years.
Correct.
And you have a family and you're thinking, you know what, maybe it's time for me to buy a house, try to get in on this crazy market. The county government can give you up to $30,000 as a down payment, and that has to help.
It does. And there's also funding available through Long Island Housing Partnership for additional funding, up to $55,000 that they're able to do if your home is in need of repairs. So if you find a home and it's, say, a handyman special or it needs a lot of work, then that we know that $30,000 will not cover that. So
it's not only a down payment, but it's also improvements to the house.
Correct.
That's like the 203K mortgage years ago.
Years ago, correct.
Yes, I remember that program. It's another program where they would give you not only your mortgage, but they would give you additional money for specific improvements to the house.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So I don't know if that program is still around anymore, but this program, $30,000, and if it needs some fix-up, up to $55,000 through not only the county but through Long Island Housing Partnership, which is a not-for-profit that the county works with.
Yes, on many issues. And,
right.
And their website is www.lihp.org.
Right. There are a few stipulations, right, about how long you have to live in the house, and even you mentioned income, some other stuff like that.
Correct. We're hoping that, and we don't want somebody to move into the house and flip it and make a profit on it. The whole purpose of this is to provide shelter.
In like the next year, 2 years, 5 years.
They need to
how
stay
many
in the
years?
House for 10 years.
10 years.
Yes, that's correct.
And if during that 10 years they have to move, what's the penalty?
They would need it's a reduced penalty per each year, so it would start to go down gradually from the amount. If they could receive the maximum $30,000, it would go down gradually until after the 10 years it's gone.
But even if they flipped it after the first year, it's $30,000, and they probably could make that and more.
And they probably make that more.
Absolutely, in today's market.
Correct.
Absolutely. So it pays to look into that.
It does.
Since we're talking about affordable housing, I won't want to fail to mention our former president, Jimmy Carter, because some of the things that we do with some of our properties is that we turn them over to the towns, because towns, not county, but the townships and villages have housing powers. County doesn't. And we do that with the express understanding that this will be given to Habitat for the Humanity to, if it's a vacant lot, to build a house, or if it's a house, to improve that house, fix it up, and make it eligible to one of their families.
Correct. And we also use our home funds that we do receive through the county to give directly to Habitat so they can rehab a home and a first-time home buyer in that way. So we are using our funds, and the home is affordable in perpetuity. So it stays affordable. We just had 3 closings in the last year or so with on Habitat homes with our home funds, with the county home funds.
Right,
So it's
and
great.
then we have closings with the town, who then can turn it, who then sign an agreement that they're turning it over immediately to Habitat so they can be fixed up. And I saw some of these Habitat houses; they are great. They do a lot, and a lot of sweat equity. It's if you want to become a Habitat owner, you've got to work.
Right.
You've got to
Right.
work not only on your house that's being built or being rehabbed, but you have to work on other houses and put in enough time
Correct.
to qualify. And there's always a mortgage for this, but it's a much reduced mortgage. So people who never thought they could own houses can now own houses. What else are we doing for affordable housing?
Well, I have to thank you for your initiative and making it such a hot topic issue, because so many applications have been coming through to the county to request funding for new builds, new apartments, and the director of the affordable is coming through. They're actually doing more than required, more than 10%. We've had some applications with 20. We've had some applications come in at 25% affordability in areas where you wouldn't expect it. I was talking before about Shelter Island and East
Right.
Hampton and Southampton doing
Sag Harbor,
affordable
too.
housing, and Sag Harbor,
Right.
Harbor, Village of Sag Harbor,
Right,
is doing
absolutely.
it as well.
Because they all know that to succeed as an island, we have to have a diversified population.
Absolutely.
And if we force young people out or people on the margins because they can't afford to live here, we won't have our workforce.
Right.
So that's a big problem. And we should always be looking to do that. And let's talk about affordable housing. When you talk about 10%, that's the Napoli-Balboni bill, which is from the many years
my
ago,
goodness.
the 80s,
That's
right?
the-
Where if you are giving zoning out and you're using IDA funding, you will give at least 10%. Now, we have a policy, and I think the county has the same policy. I remember as supervisor in Brookhaven, if you wanted to build affordable housing and you wanted to get IDA help, Industrial Development Agency help,
Right.
you had to guarantee that 20% of the units would be affordable. And I believe the county IDA, Industrial Development Agency, has the same policy. So when you see multifamily rentals, because not everyone wants to own,
Right.
some people just want to rent,
That's true.
what happens is that 20% of these units that are being built have to be affordable within the guidelines, which means the rents are lower for these people, and it helps people towards the lower end of the income spectrum be able to rent a decent place to live.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Leah, you also mentioned that there's some other projects that you work on. It's maybe other aspects of the community, sidewalks, playgrounds, things that those other spaces. Can you talk a little bit more about those projects?
Sure. Our community development block grant, since we are a participating jurisdiction with HUD, we get our funds directly, and we oversee the projects within the East End towns and Smithtown. So right now we just cleared, the Parks Department for us just cleared Mashut Beach and Hampton Bays. So we had that small window because of the long-eared bat, and we're allowed to install a playground now. We're going to do a playground in the area. So hopefully it'll be open by the end of spring.
That's
This
fantastic.
season.
My grandchildren swim at that beach.
really?
Mashut is one of the 3 county beaches. You've got Smith Point, which is on the ocean. You've got Cupsog in West Hampton, which is on the ocean. And then you have Mashut, which faces on Peconic Bay. It's right by, just past the Shinnecock Inlet,
Okay.
the canal, just past the Shinnecock Canal
Right.
on the north side. So it faces on Peconic Bay. So you know how, so little kids like it because you don't get big waves, and it's nice, and you can walk out away before it drops off. So yeah, that's where Mashut is. It'd be great to have a playground there.
It is, and I think the community would really appreciate it. And we're looking to do more in in low to moderate areas. Even the village of Greenport, we're working with the Norfolk Housing Alliance to do improvements on their existing structures, on their low to moderate income apartments that they have out there.
Yeah, because
to improve
apartments
it.
don't stay great forever. They need maintenance, they
Correct.
need improvements, and apartments that are 20, 30 years old may need a major redo.
Yes, yes. In fact, East Hampton just submitted some vouchers to do improvements on their apartments also, especially for the 65 and over community that they're doing.
When you're talking about improvements, you mean like amenities, like the floor, like things like that?
Redoing the floors,
Yeah.
upgrades to the kitchens, upgrades to appliances, putting in better ADA, widening doors, widening tubs, as some of their
But electric, not
participants
gas.
yeah, yeah, we know that ruling, right?
Yeah.
But as some of the units, they're aging in place. Some of the tenants are aging in place. They don't want to leave because where are they going to go? They can't afford to go anywhere else. So
Right.
they may need a ramp outside. They may need handles in their tubs or redoing things like that. So we pay for that.
Well, it keeps
to
them
be
out of a
done.
certain amount of dignity.
It does,
housing.
absolutely.
But since you mentioned
Absolutely.
East Hampton, the county gets involved with all types of housing projects. Georgia Green built a beautiful
Phenomenal.
development there. I was there for the ribbon cutting. I was there for the groundbreaking and then for the ribbon cutting when it was finished. They built a beautiful development there. The town of East Hampton put up $1 million towards that construction, and
Correct.
the county of Suffolk put up another $1 million.
And we also put in 500,000 in home funds too.
Yes. So
Which is great. So
we
it's
were a
1.5.
major contributor, and this is all affordable.
Yes.
And how many places are affordable in East Hampton? Not many, because that's a pretty, ritzy community. But you know what? They need people who are going to work there, because look at now, if you're a worker and you're traveling to the East End, it's the trade parade.
Right,
It's all
correct.
because there isn't enough affordable housing there. So we helped East Hampton with that. We're going to help them with off 114, just south of
Yes,
Sag Harbor.
yes.
They're looking to do affordable housing. The county is going to contribute to that as well.
Yes.
So we're contributing, and we will continue to contribute. But you know what? The sad part of the story is, no matter what we do and all the extra things we come up with, it's never enough. Because there's so many people who just can't afford the rents. And there was a candidate that ran on the rents are too damn high. That was actually a political party name.
That's
and
true.
Not only the rents, but even home ownership. And I want to do all I can to encourage young people to stay here, not leave Long Island.
Right.
We're looking at New York State. This state has lost more population than any other state in the United States as a percentage of population, because people are saying, I can't afford to live here.
Right.
The taxes are too high, the rent is too high, the mortgage payments, the cost of housing. A new house, to buy a new house or even a used house, very, very expensive. I probably couldn't afford to live in my house today if I had to buy
I think
it.
if I had to buy mine, I couldn't afford to
So-
buy my own house.
So,
Think
Yeah.
what happens when a young person leaves? They're taking that 12 years of public
Absolutely.
education with them.
Right.
That's
Yes,
70%
they are.
of the property
Yes,
tax.
and we are one of the top counties in the country where the largest population is spending more than 40% of their income on housing
And-
alone,
and
which
HUD.
doesn't.
HED says 30% or
30%,
more.
yeah.
Is that the definition of? Actually, can we get into the definition of affordable housing while we're talking about, the HUD definitions?
30% or less of your income should be spent on housing. If
housing.
you're spending more than 30%, and we are here in Suffolk, because housing costs have just escalated. As I said, I don't know if I could buy my house today.
Sure.
I bought it 25 years ago, and boom, it's expensive.
Well, what advice would you give to a younger person thinking about buying a home on Long Island today?
Check out every
Look
source
into
of funding
right,
possible.
Correct. Look into every source of funding.
And make sure that your parents, your in-laws help out,
anybody.
but get into this market because very rarely have I ever seen the housing market go down on Long Island, and I've watched it. I mean, my first house was a condo because that's what I could afford.
Right.
When I got married, I rented for 2 years. Then I bought a condo. I lived in it for 6 years. Then I bought a house,
Right.
lived there for a lot of years, sold that house, moved around the block, built another house. But I could not do that
Right.
unless I started, I got into the game. And that's Too many people are saying, I can't afford to get into, I'm going to leave, I'm going to go south.
Right.
I'm going to go to Tennessee or South Carolina or Florida or Texas. We need to keep our young people here. We need to keep our talent here. And we need to keep our workforce here. It's critical. So we're looking at every possible way that we can expand the housing stock and make it affordable.
Correct.
So, in terms of funding sources that a younger person could look at, buying a home, there was the first-time home buyer grant that we talked about. There was the second grant for repairing
Repairs
homes.
with Long Island Housing Partnership. I would say also check into organizations like Community Development Corporation of Long Island, which now it's CDLI, not CDCLI. They took out the second C to not be confused with the Center for Disease Control.
All right.
And then also talk to banks, talk to lenders. I'm actually working with a bank now and putting together a first-time home buyers forum to educate people because a lot of people don't know what's out there. I wish I had taken a class like that or done a program like that.
When do you plan to have this forum?
I would like to do it probably in the beginning of March.
Okay. You going to be ready?
I'll be ready.
Okay.
I have the bank lined up. They have people lined up. They have experts that are going to come and talk and speak to the first-time home buyers.
Peter's going to speak as well, Peter Elkowitz.
I would like to have him there, yes.
Yeah, okay, good. He's the head of
LAHP.
Right. So,
Or James.
Right. So, yeah, or James. So we're going to get some of the experts there that are going to give you
Absolutely.
some tips. You're going to get some bankers there. You're going to have someone that knows all the programs out there to tell you which ones you could qualify
Correct.
for. So we're going to do an announcement. And I'm looking at the master of spin, and that's Michael Martino. He's sitting across the room from me. He's our communications director in Suffolk County, and he's going to spin this so everyone knows when the seminar is. It will probably be on a Saturday morning.
I'd like to do it at a time when everybody can attend.
Right, Saturday morning sounds good. And we know there will be coffee and tea and bagels and
Okay.
rolls because people get hungry.
Now we know.
Now we know,
Now we
right?
know.
Now I have to put this. Well, thank God a bank is sponsoring it, and
Right.
they can sponsor the breakfast.
Well, either that or I'll sponsor it. I'll make sure because I that encourages people to come.
Absolutely.
Get a little bit of breakfast. And families are welcome, and please come. And that will be out probably in another 2 weeks. We'll start advertising
Right.
this. So listen to the radio because we'll do some PSAs.
We'll do PSAs. We'll put it on our webpage. We'll
Right.
make sure that it's out there. We'll have the flyers and announcements.
Right. And maybe we'll do a release, and News 12 will be kind enough to at least for one of their news segments announce it. So we'll be looking for that. And who knows? Maybe Newsday will do an article about that. So
That'd be
that would be
great.
very helpful. You know,
Extremely.
we have a free media. The government doesn't tell them what to do, but they could be very helpful to their listeners or
Right.
their subscribers by putting this out there. So
As we start to wrap up, I know we did mention downtowns and some of the things that we're doing to make some of these downtowns, thriving downtowns. What does that mean for Suffolk County? What does that mean for residents? What does that mean for community members to have a thriving, downtown?
I live in Patchogue, which 25 years ago nobody wanted to live in Patchogue.
No.
I mean, it was as soon as Sweezy's closed, it was a ghost town. It was desolate. It was horrible. And I bought my house there probably 2007. I probably should have waited a little bit longer. I would have gotten
better
I
price.
would have gotten a better price on it. But now it's amazing what they've done in the village of downtown, the village of Patchogue. It's amazing what they did in the downtown, down by the river, the walkability. The Mayor Paul Pontieri, he's great. Actually, I have an application in for funding for a project called the Carriage House, which they're doing luxury apartments, but they're also doing affordable units.
Some
that they're putting in
percentage
there.
will be
Yes,
affordable.
they are doing them, and they are in Brookhaven, so it's
Right.
20%, even though it's a village of Patchogue.
Right.
So,
Because the village doesn't have its own IPA.
because they don't have,
It uses
right.
Brookhaven.
So it's
Although
wonderful.
they could use the county.
They could,
But it's
They
20%.
could, but it's
No.
still 20% because they're doing not the community development fundings, but also the county fundings that we're overseeing for acquisition and for infrastructure. But it's in at the end, of course, from the Great South Bay Brewery. It is a Great South. No, Blue Point Brewery.
Point, yeah.
Blue Point Brewery, right across the street there, where it's just. They're taking out some zombie homes. They're putting in infrastructure and taking out the welding place that's there.
I know the
And
place.
doing beautiful 3 buildings, 2 pools, a spa, pet spa,
Right.
well, everything. It's beautiful.
Wow.
But the wonderful thing is when they invest in it and people there have affordability, they have access to the same amenities that people who are paying the market rate rent are. And it gives people a sense of pride and dignity and belonging, and it doesn't categorize them and put them in, affordable. What is affordable? 120% of AMI on Long Island is not affordable. I mean, if you're looking at it, it's like $27.50 for a one-bedroom apartment is workforce, and that's not affordable. People pay that for their mortgage, their insurance, their
Right.
taxes, and that's what'll get you a one-bedroom apartment now with AMI. But I think putting this together and doing our downtowns and putting everything in one place and making it a place of dignity and keeping our young people here really has an effect on our downtowns. I'm like, look at Bayshore, Patchogue. If you look at Riverhead is really going to be coming
Yes.
around. So I think it revitalizes downtowns to do investments into affordable housing.
Absolutely does. And two things that are coming on the horizon is the county is about to embark on a very ambitious sewer projects,
Yes.
many of which are in downtown areas, many of which will make housing, multifamily housing particularly,
Right.
easy to come by because they'll meet the health codes. And the second thing that is a trend that may happen in the next few years is I've been in touch with the Hot Park Industrial Park, and they have some vacant industrial buildings that they want to convert to housing.
That's
And
wonderful.
the town of Smithtown is very amenable to this, and we want to help that to increase housing stock.
Right.
So, perfect example is Pilgrim State. There's an owner there that wants to build 9,000 units, a little city. He has approval for 3,400, but he has no sewer
sewers.
solution. We are looking now, we're doing a study of that. Imagine with 3,400 units coming on the market in the next 4 or 5 years, what that will do to the marketplace. Because, again, what determines price? Oh, that's right, supply and demand.
Exactly. There's
So
no
if we
supply.
can keep on increasing the supply, maybe we start meeting some of the demand and prices level off. So I'm very anxious to get this guy the sewer connection that he needs so that they can build these 3,400 units that have already been approved by Islip Town. So it's things like that. So I'm going to spend my next less than 3 years in office now trying to do those things because I know they won't happen overnight.
Right.
But it will make a difference because we're in competition with the rest of the world, and we're losing a great deal of our workforce to other areas because of the cost of housing.
Right.
And we've got to bring that down.
Absolutely.
Just before we go, one more time for everyone listening, would you be able to list where they could get that the first-time homebuyer grant from?
If they go to our Suffolk County page, suffolkcountiny.gov, and type in Economic Development and Planning, it's under the Community Development tab, and it's the first click that you'll find on there. And it will say Down Payment Assistance Program. And it'll have all the information, and you can apply online, and the application is free. We don't charge to submit an application.
No, it's so come
We're
on,
one of the very, very few places that does not.
come on in.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Leah, and thank you for heading this effort.
Thank you, County Executive. I
Thank you,
appreciate
Brian,
it.
for moderating.
Absolutely.